Good to be back. All right, well, this is going to be surreal to finally say, but welcome everybody to BAN-KAST. Today we're going to be looking at the first episode of Bleach, the 1,000-Year Blood War arc. Woo! Nailed it! Yeah, I also got a Bleach shirt. I went to Spencer's for this. I looked in my closet. I had disappointingly few Bleach t-shirts in there, so I had to go to a store and get some. Okay, and you can't even see most of it, but whatever. Let's just roll with it. Okay, so, you know what? Before we even get into talking about the episode, welcome everybody, by the way. It's been a long time coming. I think it would be appropriate to have maybe like a 5-second moment of silence, just uninterrupted silence to just appreciate how long it's been since the last episode of Bleach aired in March of 2012. Okay, so let's just have a moment of silence here. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay, that seems about long enough. But still, like, yeah, over a decade ago, the last episode of Bleach aired. And you know what? It's like, okay, maybe you started watching Bleach recently, like maybe you heard about the final arc coming out, and you're like, you know what, that seems like a interesting show, I'm gonna watch Bleach, and you went through the entire, like, all 300-something episodes of Bleach, and you could seamlessly transition from the old anime to the new anime, lickety-split, not a big deal. Okay, great for you, fantastic, and I'm glad you're a fan of the series, welcome to the show. But for everybody else, you know, it's been a long time coming, it's been a trek through the desert on this one, alright? But yeah, we're finally here, over a decade later, talking about a new episode of Bleach. It's very strange. This is a new format, even for me. I wanted it to be in a live kind of stream format, but that didn't work out, so we're just doing it like this. So yeah, welcome to BAN-KAST, clever name that I could not come up with. I wasn't that clever. Back when the Bleach anime was announced, like in 2020, I had a fan named The Meta, and The Meta said, how about BAN-KAST for a show? And I'm like, yep, that's the one. So 2-something years later, I have to mention The Meta. Thanks to Taplaos for the logo. Looks incredible. And yeah, so a little bit of a different format on this one, absolutely. I'm not really even sure how everything's going to like settle in. One thing that I did want to bring up, and this was something I was going to have to discuss sooner or later, was spoilers, because I have read the entire manga of the series, and so I was thinking about how to approach this. Am I going to approach this from like no spoilers for future episodes kind of situation, or am I going to approach this from like, okay, someone that has read the entire manga, and now that I'm going back and looking at the anime and seeing what scenes are different, pointing out what's going to happen later and everything, I'm thinking I'm probably going to have to do the latter. I'm thinking this is probably going to be a spoiler-heavy kind of event for a few reasons. For number one, I think everybody watching me at this point is either a fan from back in the Bleach days, or somebody that, you know, maybe read Bleach in the intermediate when there was not, you know, anything going on, maybe got caught up on the story or whatever. I feel like most people that are watching the anime probably have read the manga, at least know what's going to happen by the end of the story, so I will be probably dropping spoilers throughout. Probably not so much in this episode, but obviously that's kind of the whole point of this, where there were a lot of things that happened in the final arc in Bleach, in the manga, that the fans weren't really happy about, particularly the ending. I'm not going to go into the ending here, but suffice to say, a lot of people had problems with it, myself included. There were also a lot of scenes that just seemed rushed, or like the pacing could have been a bit better. You could have added some stuff into it, and even Kubo himself came out and said that he would have done things a little differently. So even in this episode, there's a few scenes that have been added, because obviously it's not going to be a 1-to-1 ratio from manga to anime. There are going to be some differences, but, you know, as we go throughout the arc, I think a lot more stuff are going to be added in. And I'm going to have to bring that up. I'm going to have to mention it at some point, like, hey, this whole scene here wasn't in the manga at all. And this is either if it's a good addition or a bad addition or a strange addition. We got to talk about that stuff as we go, all right? So this is episode 1, The Blood Warfare. It actually dropped yesterday. It was leaked. So I watched it yesterday, but this episode will not be up until it's, you know, dropped officially on Hulu through Disney Plus and everything. I believe that the time slot in Japan when this actually airs, though, is very late night, like midnight, if not later, because this is uncensored. So there actually is a lot of blood in this. The original Bleach anime, there were quite a few scenes when characters, you know how Kubo loves to rip characters' arms off? Well, yeah, in the original Bleach anime, that had to be dialed down a bit. So, like, I remember the scene with Uryu and Ukiura, like, Uryu, like, literally lost a hand in the fight between Ukiura and him, and in the anime, they changed it to having his, like, hand broken or whatever. So, yeah, that's not prevalent in this at all. Just from the first episode, in, like, the first 5 chapters chapters. We pretty much cover chapters 480 to 484, although there is some stuff that is kind of moved around to fit the scene better, which I love, and we'll get into that as we go about it. But yeah, just in that case, in the first 5 chapters that have been covered here, there's a lot of blood, there's a lot of gore. Character designs have shifted a little bit to be more faithful to the manga. Sasakibe, I'm looking at you. There was even a scene with him that I wanted to get into. All right, so like I said, different formats. So I basically have this. I got this idea from Alt-Shift-X. If you haven't heard of that YouTube channel, go check out Alt-Shift-X. And basically what he does is he reviews Game of Thrones and like House of the Dragon right now. And what I love about his channel is he'll just pull the episode up, and then obviously he won't play it because of copyright reasons, but then he can kind of just, you know, scroll through the episode to like focus on a point that he is discussing. So we're going to try that format out, and hopefully I don't get like taken down or anything for that. I'm not going to play anything. There's not going to be any music or anything. I'm just showing the still shots as I discuss the episode. Transformative in nature. Okay, so anyway. Also, something else, I have a soundboard over here. I don't know how often I'll get to use it, but I have a soundboard over here. Yeah, sad trombone music. Okay, so yeah, let's just get started. All right, so the way that the episode starts off is essentially, well, actually no, before we even get into the actual episode, we got to talk about this first. Now, this was something that was revealed a few days ago. Actually, they released like the first minute of the episode, like officially, like it wasn't leaked or anything. So we actually got to see this. So this is cool because it gives us a little bit of prelude into what's going to happen. In the manga, it just dives right into the scene at the 12th Division with Mayuri and everybody, okay? So this is something that is, there's a lot of poetry in Bleach, and in fact, they even brought that back at the end of the episode where the little poems that appear at like the end of the chapters and the tankobons that Kubo puts in. But anyway, so this is actually a little bit of a poem or like a song that was indicative to the Quincy's, to the Stern Reader. And it's this, basically this story of a sealed king that after 900 years will regain his pulse, and then another 90 years will regain his form or intelligence. Yeah, it's 900 years for body or form, 90 years to regain his intelligence, 9 years to regain his power, and then 9 days to conquer the world. Okay, that was like the idea. So like 999, pay attention to the nines. They will be very relevant in this arc. And we begin the episode with the Quincy King, or Quincy Jesus, as I called him in the Bleach reviewing days, Yuha Bach, basically announcing this story, or like reciting this song or this poem. And we even see that right here in this shot. We have the scene with the Quincy cross or the Quincy pentacle, like the 5-pointed star. That will be very relevant in this arc as well, obviously. This is the same symbol that Uryu uses to summon his spirit bow, okay? We see Yuha's hand like reaching out and be like, you know, the Quincy's will return, okay? So we don't actually hear about that song or that poem until way later in the arc, in the manga. Like, that doesn't happen, I think, until like a good 40, 50 something chapters in, where we hear about the like 900 years to regain body, 90 years for the mind, 9 years for power, 9 days to conquer the world. We don't hear about that until way later in the manga. So it's like the perfect prelude, like lead in to the anime. Absolutely. So then we cut to the scene at Squad 12, okay, where they are reporting on all of these hollows being wiped out. Obviously, everything just looks a lot better now. I mean, this is incredible. It basically looks like a war room. We have a map of Japan there, which I do honestly love. It's just like, okay, it's like, actually, this is something that's touched upon during Burn the Witch, which is like not really a prequel or a sequel to Bleach. It's more of just like a different part of Kubo's universe that he created. It's the Taito Kubo cinematic universe. But it's like there is a Western Soul Society branch and there's an Eastern Soul Society branch. This is obviously the Eastern branch that takes place in Japan, and then there's a Western branch that is over in London. So it would make sense that's just like, okay, yeah, they're only really concerned about Japan right now, but a bunch of hollows are being wiped out. Also, this ties into Karakura Town being the center of spiritually enriched Earth that was mentioned earlier in the story. Like, how come all this weird stuff only happens in Karakura Town? What about all these other regions of Japan? What about the other regions of the world? Like, do they get hollows in China? Do they get them in Africa? Do they get them in, like, you know, I don't know, Omaha, Nebraska in the US? Like, how does this work? And the idea is there's always a center of spiritually enriched Earth, and that just happens to be Karakura Town right now, which is where Ichigo and everybody lives. So that's the kind of idea. So yeah, we have Mayuri there in his new outfit. He actually does not stay in this outfit for too long because he does have an outfit shift later on in the story, where he kind of spends most of the arc in that sort of outfit, like the bright illuminating outfit to counter the Quincy shadow abilities. But I really like this design because it's this giant ornate golden headdress that he wears that actually has the squad symbol written on the back of the headdress because it's just so big it actually covers up the captain cloak. That's really funny. So yeah, Mayuri's in the center as the captain, and then to the right here we have Akon, who is the third seat of the 12th division, and then we have just some random dude right there. So they're of course mentioning the destruction of hollows all over Karakura Town and all over Japan, honestly. So now we're cutting over to Karakura Town proper. We do not get the opening theme in this. I don't think that's because they don't have one. They do. It's just that it's the first episode. So a lot of times when it comes to like first episodes in an anime, you know, you won't really play it. They want to add like more screen time for the characters to get introduced into the world and everything like that. So this is Ryunosuke Yuki on the left and Shino on the right. I don't believe we ever actually learn Shino's, like, I guess last name. I think Shino is just her first name. So yeah, it's Ryunosuke Yuki and Shino, and they are both members of the 13th Division under Jushiro Uketake and Ruki Akuchi, who is now the lieutenant of the 13th Division. They are not seated officers. They don't really have any high status. They are just regular soldiers in the 13th Division that are tasked with patrolling Karakura Town. It's been mentioned before, the 13th Division is actually the division that is in charge of patrolling that section of spiritually enriched Earth in the living world, so which would be Karakura Town right about now. Ryunosuke is pretty shy, pretty nervous. This is like the first time he's ever really been out there. So there's actually, let me see if I can, I'm trying to get used to this screenshot here. So just bear with me on this. Bear with me if we can get the scene here right. Okay, so, oh, yes, and we have a mysterious individual here in the middle of Karakura Town releasing hollow baits, which was something that was shown way back earlier in the substitute arc when Uryu and Ichigo did that hollow hunting kind of contest. Uryu revealed that Quincy's have access to a thing called hollow bait, which it's like a cylinder and he shatters it and it basically draws hollows in from Hueco to a specific location. So probably the first hint, and we see this in the manga very early on, that yeah, the enemies are in fact Quincy's. And it was something also that was mentioned by Mayuri in the previous scene, like all these hollows being exterminated, and of course that's a big deal because if hollows are exterminated, that upsets the balance of everything, and which would also mean that it could like bring down the destruction of the worlds. The existence of the Soul Society and the living world in Hueco kind of maintains this particular balance, and that balance is only maintained because there's a certain amount of hollows that are comparable to the amount of souls in the Soul Society and in the world of the living. Like there's this balance and exchange of souls. In the Bleach world, it's kind of like a Buddhist reincarnation sort of situation where souls are constantly switching back and forth between two different realms. And if that balance is disrupted in any way through like the destruction of hollows, that could literally bring down like existence. So the destruction of hollows, while it might sound good on paper, like these evil spirits that are like killing things, oh, just wipe them all out. If they're actually all wiped out, that could actually have major detrimental effects for the Soul Society, which also resulted in the, complete obliteration of the Quincy's. At least we assumed the complete obliteration of the Quincy's that led up to, Soken Ishida being killed by Mayuri and experimented on and everything, and that's whole thing with Uryu and when he fought against Mayuri and the Soul Society and all that stuff. So there's a lot of rich lore when it comes to the Quincy's. So we have, right here, we have Zenosuke Kuromadani, the Afro Shinigami dude. We've already met him before in the previous story. He was the guy that originally patrolled Karakura Town. It looks like he actually got a bit of a promotion. I don't believe... If he had a rank, it was very, he was like a very low officer ranked Shinigami in the 13th Division. He might have actually gotten a promotion now, so maybe he's like the 20th seat or something, or maybe he has like a decently high rank. Maybe he's like the 10th seat of Squad 13 now or whatever. But Zenosuke Kuromadani was the original one in charge of Karakura Town, and now he's sort of like the senpai, the sensei, I guess, in charge of Ryunosuke and Shino, and is now like, okay, now you two are going to be the ones that are going to patrol Karakura Town now, so good luck with you. And so he just kind of wishes them the best. Shino and Yuki in Shino and Ryunosuke, in typical Scooby-Doo fashion, decide immediately to split up, of course, and so they go off into their individual areas. We have this really nice shot. Like, all of Karakura Town looks so good in this anime, by the way. Like, it's just the lighting of, like, the street lamps and everything. This bridge being illuminated is nice. The background noise is nice. Just, like, the added background noise of, like, usually whenever we had night shots at Karakura Town way back in the day, they were usually no ambient noise. It's just, like, you know, the characters running through a town in the middle of the night. But now it's like you get background noise of, like, cars driving by, and, like, just, you know, just the random hustle and bustle of a town at night. And so that just, like, added sound design really goes a long way, I have to say. So we have Ryunosuke here, we have Shino, and they are pretty much, their relationship seems to be sort of like a big brother, little sister kind of situation. Like, Shino is sort of like, you know, she could be kind of, you know, rough with Ryunosuke, but at the end of the day, she actually does care about him, as from what we're going to see later on in this episode. But it is kind of like a brother-sister side of kind of relationship. So these two don't really get to do much in the manga, like, at all. Like, they pretty much only appear at the very beginning. There's, like, a scene briefly during the first Quincy invasion where they show up, but they don't really do much of anything. They're just kind of there in the background. And then after that, I think Kubo just kind of puts them off on the side. Like, honestly, you could say that Ryunosuke and Shino die in the first battle with the Quincy's, and it's like we would never know because they don't ever show up after that. I'm hoping that they actually do get to do stuff. You know, like, I didn't really care too much about them. There's a little bit more of their personality showcased in this episode, so I just want them to do something. You know what I mean? Like, there was even a shot in this episode where I thought that Ryunosuke was going to awaken his Zanpakuto. I thought that would have been so cool if it was revealed, like, what his Shikai was, or if he even had a Shikai, because he is just like a regular soldier in the 13th Division. I don't know if it's confirmed that, like, every single Shinigami that is a member of the Gotei have to at least have Shikai. I think that might just be something that's limited to the officers. Like, if you're an officer, you pretty much have to have Shikai at least, but with the regular Shinigami, like, there's the foot soldiers, I don't think you have to. So it would have been cool, though, if Ryunosuke did that. He didn't in the episode, but we do get a little bit more of his personality, so I do want to see a little bit more of him in the future. So poor Ryunosuke. I love this shot right here, by the way, after Shino leaves, and Ryunosuke is just, like, there by himself, and he's just like, aw, man, okay then. I mean, but look how detailed the town is behind him. Like, we get to see the crosswalks, all of the, like the lights in the distance. We see a car driving down there. It's so much better detail. I love it. I hope this can just keep up for the entire the entire arc, okay? I hope there's not a downtick when it comes to, like, the animation quality or, like, the background design. I hope it's not a thing where it's just like, you know, this is like the first episode, so we have to go all out for this, you know? But I think it's going to keep up, and it's going to be amazing. So we have this shot that actually is a great, it's a nice little, like, visual gag, I guess, or like a visual reference. Not really a gag, because Kubo does this a lot. He loves symbolism. Kubo loves symbolism, especially when it comes to rain. If, like, the rain is symbolic of the sadness and the turmoil in all of our souls and in our hearts. You know, rain is so symbolic in the Bleach universe, and this is something that's just also something a little symbolic, a little bit of foreshadowing, where we have the lights, the traffic light, as green, and then when the hollows show up and begin to attack, the lights go red. So for one thing, it also is just like, oh, you get it, like, everything is safe when the color is green, but when the color shifts to red, all hell breaks loose. Oh god, what are we gonna do? And then also, it's just like it bathes everything in the red color to be more like danger time, danger time. Hold on, I have an alarm here. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so yeah, soundboard. Awesome. So this is something that we actually add a little bit here in the anime of Ryunosuke just jumping around the town and just patrolling by himself. We see him hanging out here on this bridge. This is something that I think was changed a little bit in the manga. Actually, I have the manga right here, volume 55, if you want to check that out. So, yeah, it is changed here, where in the manga, Ryunosuke, pretty much as soon as leaving Shino, there's an immediate cut where Ryunosuke kind of just turns around and the hollow is already there. So it adds a little bit of scenes here where Ryunosuke patrols around town first before encountering the hollow. And as you can see here, the walk sign is active, And Ryunosuke looks up, and holy shit, it's a giant hollow. And by the way, the hollows are beefy in this episode. They are huge, really giving you the idea of how terrifying. And these aren't Menos Grande or anything like that. These are just regular-ass hollows. But, I don't know, like, the way that hollows were scaled in the original, like, the Substitute arc, a lot of the hollows, like, the Menos obviously was huge, and there were some hollows that were big. But these hollows are just, like, eldritch monsters. Like, they are the size of buildings, if not bigger in some respects, compared to like Fishbone D, who was the first hollow that Ichigo ever actually fought and killed when he awoke his powers, who was like a big hollow. It was like maybe like, I don't know, 10, 12 feet tall, like definitely bigger than the average human. But I also think that the size of hollows tends to change a bit. Also, like some shots, they might seem smaller than in other shots, but these hollows are beefy. So Ryunosuke looks at this thing and he's like, oh, a giant hollow. Okay, well then. All right, time to get out of here. And he starts chasing after the hollow. He starts chasing after him. Here's the lights all going red and everything like that. There's added shots of him running through a building, which is not something that was shown in the manga. So here's Ryunosuke just like running into a building, causing a lot of property damage, I have to say. And then he finally, oh my god, I love this shot. This shot is so cool. So he's running up the steps, and as we've established, there's a lot of like symbolism in this episode up until now, with like blue, I'm not blue, but like green representing like, okay, this is safe, this is good, you're okay. And then red representing like danger, you're gonna die or whatever. But now you have that whole thing kind of flipped on its head, kind of like in a false lead, where Ryunosuke is running up the steps of this building and he sees a door with a green light over it, and you think that like, oh, this is going to lead to safety. This is going to be like, I'm going to open this door and I'm going to be okay. Like Shino's going to be there, and we're going to fight against this hollow together and we're going to win, and this is going to be the day. But no, it isn't, because after Ryunosuke opens the door, he sees Shino also grabbed by a large ape-like hollow. And he realizes at that point that he's pretty much stripped. Like, look at the size of these hollows here, right? This one has like 3 holes in his chest, which I'm not really sure what that indicates, because the whole idea, the symbolism of the hollow hole is that you have your heart gouged out. So I don't know. Like, that's what I mean by these things just being way more monstrous. These might be Menos for all we know. Like, Ichigo shows up and defeats them along with like Orihime, Chad, and Uryu, but like they're so powerful at this point that kind of makes sense that they might be low-tiered Menos or whatever. There's also different classifications. Like, there was that one hollow. Remember that one hollow that split into 2 different halves that Uryu had to fight back when he lost his powers? That's when we actually got one of the first big, introductions into Ryukin. He also referred to that hollow as a Menos, even though it didn't look like any of the Gillions that we saw. I mean, these might be at Hujas, but I highly doubt that they are. But anyway, yeah, so Ryunosuke sees that Shino is there, and he actually has a moment where he's like, okay, this is my hero moment. And that's where I thought where it was going. All right, this is my hero moment right here. I'm going to draw my Zanpakuto. I'm going to release it, and I'm going to try to fight against these hollows. I'm probably going to lose. I'm probably going to die, but I got to do that to save my friend, okay? And that's, of course, where he gets defeated. He gets stabbed by the hollow that snuck up from behind him, the spider hollow from earlier, attacks him. He goes down. He thinks he's about to die, but then, oh my god, see, look at that. Like, that's pretty gruesome right there. He's got his arm broken. He's not doing too good. And like, we had a little bit of CG here, actually, some CG of the hollow like looming over Ryunosuke as it raises up like its spike arm about to like run him through. And then we have a scene. Boom! Right there. We got Getsuga. I have a theme for that. Bam! Yeah, I love that shot, by the way. Like, when I first watched that episode, I saw Ichigo bust out the Getsuga, and I'm just like, oh, fuck, yes! Bam! Yeah, right in the side of it. So the Getsuga Tensho, fun fact, is actually yellow now. This is something that was revealed earlier in the trailers. But yeah, so Ichigo's Zanpakuto is Zangetsu, of course, and his one ability that he almost always uses throughout the story, he doesn't usually get another technique, actually until this arc, is Getsuga Tensho, Moonfang, Piercer of Heaven. It's always indicated in his Shikai as colored blue and in his Bankai as colored black with a red outline. So they change up the color scheme here to being something a little bit more faithful to Kubo's original vision. And so the Getsuga here is yellow. So I just love the light of this thing. Like, literally, it is the light kind of bringing, like, the savior of, like, oh, okay, it's like, okay, Ryunosuke. I mean, it honestly played off sort of like a horror story up until now, like a little bit of a horror anime where Ryunosuke is being stalked through the city by this large, like, eldritch Cthulhuoid monster, okay? And then he finds, like, the twist of the horror story is like, oh, no, your friend is also dead, and you're gonna die, and there are these giant monsters that are just going to eat you pretty much, because that's kind of how hollows roll. And then out of the last minute here, it kind of flips. It's very appropriate for Halloween time, I have to say. It's just the tone of that. And then boom, out of nowhere, Ichigo shows up with the Getsuga and saves the day. All these other hollows are like, what? We have Uryu with his new short bow. We actually got to see that during the Fullbringer arc. And Chad with his 2 arms there, and then we have Orihime, Shun Rika, and then we have the scene here. Let me see if I can get the scene here. So just, it's a little bit harder to see because the effect actually moves in the anime, but Orihime is just Santen Keshun, or Soten Kishun, the healing, mirror reflection, is actually way better animated. Like, before, it was pretty much just like a solid orange color whenever she activated her powers. Now it's more of like a GIF where it actually moves, like there's texture to it, kind of like the effect of the energy like swirling around. And it also indicates just how proficient Orihime is at her abilities now, because she basically just passes her Soten Kishun for just like a few seconds, a few moments over Ryunosuke and Shino, and she indicates that like, oh, this is just like this is just first aid. I'm just issuing you first aid right here, and so I'm going to come back and heal you later. Just sit tight. So then we get the epic scene where Ichigo, Orihime, Chad, and Uryu all fight against these hollows together. This is from chapter 481, and we have the scene here where, let's see. So Orihime actually uses an ability here, which is something that she first utilized against Ginjo in the previous arc, where she actually combines 4 of her Shun Rika together to make a new technique, which is actually like a blast shield kind of situation, where the hollow like attacks the shield and gets like rebounded, so like it's attacked back to it because Tsubaki's hidden in it. So normally Orihime's abilities only are like 3 different Shun Rika, 3 of her fairies in order to make a shield, and then 2 of them to make a healing shield, and then 1 of them to attack. And so here we have 4, like a 4-sided shield, which is actually even a little bit different from the technique she used against Ginjo previously. It was just laid out a little bit differently. Now it's like actually like a square or like a rectangle. So it might be a different technique that she uses altogether, but she attacks one of the hollows with that and manages to take one of those out there. She, attacks it there. Oh my god, that's such a cool scene. Okay, and then we get this shit. We get this, and I gotta tell you what, this is a little cheesy, but I eat this shit up. I love it when they do, like, the title card crap. I love it when they did it in, like, My Hero Academia. I love it in, like, Hunter x Hunter and Yu Yu Hakusho, where, like, whenever a character reveals an ability, it's like, here's a scene with their ability. It's like, this is what it's called, this is how it's written and everything like that. I really love that shit in anime. It's a little cheesy, but it's great. It's phenomenal. So after Orihime kills one of the hollows, knocks it back, we get, like, Orihime Inoue, and then we have a scene with Chad using La Muerte against, and this is all the way, these techniques we, by the way, do not get to see in the manga. It's pretty much just, like, kind of off screen for the most part, where Ichigo and his friends show up to fight the hollows, and then just kind of cuts to a scene later with them, like, after the fact. We actually get to see the kind of the full fight here, and Chad has both of his right arms, and we see a shot of his medallion, of the coin that his abuelo gave him. And so then he uses La Muerte, which is a technique that he uses to finish off Gantenbein Mosqueda. It kind of leaves the impression of the skull against one of the buildings. Who's gonna pay for all this property damage? That's my question. All right. Then we get, Yasatoro Sado! Oh my god, can we please get Chad to do stuff in this arc? Please. Please, for the love of God. Because I'll tell you what, in like in the manga, this is like the last thing. I mean, I think Chad, just with the added scenes here of him using La Muerte, that's more times than he used La Muerte than in the actual manga in this arc. So can we have that, more of Chad, more of Orihime, more of Ichigo's friends actually doing stuff here? That would be fun. And then we, of course, have Ichigo himself there just standing, just waiting. Here's Uryu. Uryu's arrows, like, they're like exploding rounds. They hit these damn hollows, and they blow the fuck up. There's Uryu using Hearing Kyaku, which is the flying screen step. It's the high-speed movement technique that the Quincy's utilize, similar to the Sonido of the Arankar and of the Shunpo for the Shinigami. So he's just literally quick scoping, like one-shotting, blowing these damn things heads off. Like, it's just, he's dead shot with this thing. And then he uses leaked Reagan, which is his light rain. That's kind of like Uryu's. Like, it kind of became Uryu's like signature named attack throughout the story. He does use it a few more times in the manga. And so he uses leaked Reagan there. And then we're going to get his title card. Title card! There we go. Nice. Uryu Ishida, the last Quincy. Ooh. And then, of course, we have Ichigo here, where I love this shot because this is like, okay, let's say in like RPG terms, Ryunosuke is like level 3, and the Hollows are all like level 40, and like Ichigo and his friends are all like in their like level 70. Like let's say Ichigo's friends are like level 70, and Ichigo himself is like maxed out at like level 100, okay? And so it's like he doesn't even need to use Bankai here. Like there's no reason why he does. He just does it because he can, and it looks fucking cool. All right, so here we go. Now we have like, instead of the blue Ryatsu kind of like electricity firing off of Ichigo, now it's yellow, which I think fits the character very well. And then he's like, Bankai! I need to get Bankai on my soundboard. I don't have that, but I need to get a Bankai on there. And so now Ichigo goes into Bankai, and then holy crap. I mean, look at this. Look at this phenomenal transformation here. We got a swoop of like black energy as he like moves Tensa Zangetsu here, just standing in front of this explosion like a damn action movie villain. Well, action movie hero. But villain? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Does Ichigo become a villain in this arc? I don't know. Who knows? But anyway, so we get the shot here where he just finishes off the last hollow and just completely obliterates it. The Getsuga Tensho now, and we'll see it later on when he uses it against Eburn, but the Getsuga Tensho now is black with like a white outline as opposed to black with a red outline. So that looks pretty cool there. Anyway, so that's Ichigo, just like save the day. There we go. Good job, Ichigo. And then we have here, I love this. This was something that was really welcome. This is like basically we're going with like an Attack on Titan kind of info, like stat screen kind of situation. So it's not really a stat screen though on Ichigo in particular, but it's like an info panel, just like this is what a Soul Reaper is. Like this is what a Soul Reaper is. This is how you write it in kanji, and this is a brief description of what they do and where they live and everything like that. Okay, so if we're gonna get more of that, like as like the eye catch, as like the interstitch on like the episodes, that would be actually really cool, as like the intermediate between the like commercial breaks. That'd be interesting because it would kind of harken back to like, you know, like other anime, like I said, like Attack on Titan does this a lot. So yeah, absolutely. So, one thing I do want to bring up before we continue here, actually a few things. So, number one, there's actually a shot at this point in the manga with the Vizards, with Lisa and Hiyori, that was actually cut out of this episode. It's probably just moved around to the next episode. I don't think they omitted it. I think it's just because they moved around a lot of stuff just to make it more sense, like thematically, like parallel scenes going on. So, that'll probably happen in the next episode. So, this is Ichigo's room. Something that I understand why they did this, and I want to clarify. This is not a nitpick, and it's something different from the manga, but it's perfectly fine. Like, it's nothing that's going to affect the story. So, and they actually have even done this before with, like, anime like Hunter x Hunter. So, like, Hunter x Hunter started, like, the manga was in the 90s, right? And so, in the manga way back in Hunter x Hunter, characters were using, like, flip phones and stuff, and, like, watching, like, CRT televisions, right? Because that was what was in the zeitgeist at the time. That's the technology. When the Hunter x Hunter anime was adapted in 2011 by Studio Madhouse, they kind of changed everything around. So it was flat screen monitors and tablet computers, and everybody has a smartphone instead of a flip phone, and it was fine, right? And they did kind of the same thing here with Bleach, where Ichigo now has a smartphone, and he has like a tablet, he has like an iPad that he's messing with there. And so the actual Bleach anime, like the Bleach manga, takes place from like 2001 to like 2003, where Ichigo is a freshman in high school. He's a first-year high school student in 2001, and by the time of the end of the manga, well, not the end of the manga because there's an epilogue, but by the time like the 1,000-Year Blood War arc is happening, it's like 2003, okay? And so they're going to update a lot of this stuff here, where Ichigo's just going to have a smartphone now and a tablet computer and a flat screen TV, and it doesn't mean anything for the actual story of the 1,000-Year Blood War arc. It means nothing with that. The fact that Ichigo has a smartphone is not going to change anything. I just wanted to bring it up because it is an updated thing that the animation department decided to go with to make it more contemporary with, you know, 2022, where we're at right now. So it's fine. Also, Ichigo changed his sheets for any kind of, you know, anybody that remembers back, his original bedspread actually looks very similar to the Quincy Cross, which is maybe something of a foreshadowing, but it's actually changed now to being like green lines. So just to bring that up there. But it's nice to see Ichigo's room again. This is always like the home base for everybody gathering together. So, now we get a little bit more into like the slower pace, just kind of reintroducing all of the characters, seeing them talk and bicker and everything like that. We see Orihime and Uryu here in their Karakura High School uniforms. Ryunosuke is just kind of worried about Shino. There's Uryu and Ichigo having a little bit of an argument. I don't think that was really shown in the manga at all. It kind of just, I think they're going to push Uryu a little bit more into the forefront here, given the fact that Quincy's are the main villain, and Uryu doesn't really do much at the beginning of the arc in the manga. He kind of just doesn't. He kind of just shows up here and then sort of like disappears for a little while, and then he kind of just shows up again as he's a member of the Vandenreich. You know, he just kind of shows up out of nowhere, like it's like, I'm working for Yuha now. I'm a Sternritter. You know what I mean? So it's nice that we're gonna get a little bit more focus on Uryu and Ichigo's relationship in particular, because that should have kind of had more focus in the manga. So let's see here. Yeah, like Ryunosuke and the bread. Oh yeah, this is a fun scene where Ryunosuke looks down at his gi guy. Like he just sees like this, like basically this body of him. Actually, hold on a second. This is a weird kind of change, but I can kind of understand why they did it. So in the manga of this scene, I think, yeah, in the manga of this scene, I think the gi guy is naked, like, which is even more disturbing. Like, you wake up next to a naked, dead body version of yourself. And so they added clothing on him here, because it's just like, hey, Ryunosuke, change into your gi guy so you can eat this delicious bread. And Ryunosuke's like, what gi guy? And he just looks next to him, and there's this naked version of himself that's just sitting there lifeless. It's like, oh my god! You know, like, I would have freaked out too. That'd be a little weird. So, yeah, that's a difference in the manga. So we now have we have Shino walk in too here, and so Shino kind of showcases that she's like, oh, okay, I'm happy you're not dead, okay, and they have a moment together where it's just like, you know, big sis kind of relationship there, so, you know, good for them or whatever. Let's see here. So this is the introduction to Ebern. And this is really cool because I love the contrast here. If you go back just a few shots, the curtains and everything in Ichigo's room are shut, so it's just like the artificial light of his room. And then all of a sudden, the window just opens as Ebern arrives, and boom, the big, just bright light of the sunset just hits him in the background, just illuminating him. And it's a shot that's it's taken right out of the manga, but just the fact that we have the lighting now is just way, way more just like detailed and everything. So it's way creepier, absolutely. By the way, Ebern wins the I don't know if I'm gonna make this a regular thing on the show, but Ebern wins the award of having the creepiest singular like scene in this entire episode. Like, his facial expression at one point is absolutely terrifying. So with this, like, by the way, with my setup right here, I can go like scene by scene, but for whatever reason I can't go frame by frame. So that's why I can't like pinpoint an exact thing. I'll see to improve that maybe later on. But this is Ebern, who is an Arrancar that has been recruited into the Vandenreich as basically their vanguard unit. Okay, and so he has a really cool design. He has a cool mask and everything. And then, of course, the funny scene is like, you know, he's like, hello there, welcome. I am Ebern. And Ichigo is just like, I don't give a shit who you are. Can you please get off my bed? You're standing on my bed with your dirty freaking boots, dude. Like, get off. And Ebern is just like, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Can you please repeat yourself? And Ichigo's just like, okay, I'm just gonna kick you out of my bedroom. And Ichigo just does that. And I love the shot here where after, oh, that's a great shot, where when Ichigo goes, oh, look at that, I love that. It's just like, hello there. Because he's trying to play up the role of like, I am... It's sort of like, you know, his first D&D character or something, like, oh, I'm a member of the Vandenreich now. I'm going to be all cool with my Vandenreich uniform, and I'm going to go meet Ichigo Kurosaki, and I'm going to be really sleek. He kind of is trying to, like, emulate Aizen a little bit. Like, I'm going to be this cool, tactical, Machiavellian schemer kind of villain. I'm going to be on the level of Sosuke Aizen. I'm going to show up to Ichigo's bedroom, and I'm going to be so sleek, and I'm going to be like, hello there, I am Ebern. Welcome to your death, Ichigo Kurosaki. Like, I'm gonna be so sleek with it, and it's just Ichigo just gives zero shits, and he's just like, get the hell out of my bedroom, and just proceeds to kick him in the face. Also, there's a shot where Orihime, like, right on cue, like, notices what Ichigo's about to do, and Orihime just opens up the bedroom window, so he just immediately gets flung out, so the bedroom doesn't get, like, the window doesn't get destroyed. And then Ichigo turns into a Shinigami and immediately goes after him. Meanwhile, we have a shot there where Uryu is like, oh, is that on a wrong car? He has a mask. And just, I don't know, the camera just tends to linger on Uryu for a little bit here, okay? And I'm just like, okay, we're going to see where that's going to go. So, we actually... This is where the manga scenes kind of like combine together. So it's the shot with Ichigo fighting Ebern versus the Vandenreich, the other, Arrancar looters arriving at, Yamamoto's office to announce war, to actually declare war. Like, we are the Vandenreich, we are the Quincy's, we're declaring war on you. And so those two scenes actually happen separately in the manga. They happen in, like, I think this shot happens in, like, chapter 481 or 482. And the scene with, like, Yamamoto doesn't happen until, like, the next chapter over or something, at, like, the end of the next chapter. So these scenes are actually happening concurrently now. So Ichigo is going to begin to fight against Ebern. Oh my god, look at that sun flare. That is such a cool shot there. And then, he's like, oh, I'm actually a Quincy, blah, blah, blah. And now we cut over to the Soul Society. We have this brief scene with Ikaku and Yumachika where they're just investigating a deserted village in Rukongai. And then we cut to Yamamoto's office. Let's see, where is it? Right, well, it's 12th Division. There we go, Yamamoto's office here, where Yamamoto is just kind of hanging out, and then all of a sudden the guy giving a message is just killed right in front of him. Like, that's a lot of gore right there. That's a guy's head that just got blown off. But anyway, so yeah, here are the Vanguard unit. Some of these are actual Quincy's, and others are just, like, Arrancars that were enlisted in the army. So Luders Frieden is the one that's actually speaking. He's the one, like, in the center there. And so, yeah, this happens parallel to Ichigo fighting Ebern because it introduces the concept of the Quincy's being able to steal Shinigami Bankai. Okay, and there's actually a shot earlier when you saw Yamamoto with, like, the yellow glare on his face, where he actually gets to witness, like, oh, that's Sasakibe's Bankai. So we don't get to see the full fight of it. Maybe we'll see it later in, like, a flashback or whatever. But Sasakibe, who is the 1st Division lieutenant, who we see here get impaled. There he is, right there. Poor Sasakibe. Couple of things. I love Sasakibe, by the way. Couple of things. Sasakibe's eyes are finally fixed to be the way they are in the manga. I don't think he's intended to be blind, but he doesn't have pupils in the manga, and they gave him pupils in the anime. So that is corrected, and he doesn't have pupils now. I don't know if that he's supposed to be blind, or that's just how his eyes look, or whatever. But that's Sasakibe Chojuro, the 1st Division lieutenant, who just got impaled by a giant freaking partisan or whatever. And so, yeah, his Bankai is the golden gilded terrace of the stern spirit. His Shikai is Gonrimaru, and his Bankai is, I can't remember the name right now, but it's like, I know the English translation of it, but I don't remember the exact, like, the Japanese version of it. So, Gonryu Riku is in there, I know that much. Anyway, it's the ability to summon electricity, and so we saw the flash of that electricity earlier, and so it's like, okay, at least it's something to indicate that he was fighting, that he used his Bankai against one of the Sternritter. Absolutely. So we have the Vandenreich here. Oh, that's a cool reflect. I love the masks that they wear. They don't really use these masks at all forever out the arc after this point. The Quincy's don't, like, put on these masks anymore, which is, kind of unfortunate, because it's like a really cool design where it's just like this reflective black mask that they're wearing, and then with the reflection of the spear that impaled Chojuro. And so Yamamoto saves him. He takes him down from being impaled, and then the Quincy's just disappear into the shadows, which in and of itself is a way updated effect. By the way, this is something I didn't even notice in the manga. It probably is in the manga, I would assume. The shot of the Quincy's, actually, they're taking note to stay in the shadows of Yamamoto's office. And I don't think, actually, you know what? I don't think it's that obvious in the manga. They are standing in, no, they're actually not. And the first panel, the first page of chapter 483, which is, oh god, that's a German name I can't pronounce. But anyway, yeah, they are not standing in the shadows of anything. There's no shadow in the office. Here it is very obvious they are standing in the shadows, which makes sense because there's, like, the shadow dimension that the Quincy's are in, that their castle is in the Silburn, and they have to go and change. They have to, like, switch in and out of the shadows, and so that was something that was also added. So that's pretty cool there. So their transition of them, they going into the shadows is even a little bit added, and we get to see this more closely with when Ebern goes back. But then, going immediately cuts to Ichigo fighting Ebern. And so this is what I mean by it's intercut with Ichigo fighting against Ebern. Really cool choreography here. Ichigo jumping around the town. Ebern taking out his giant bow, which is like a cannon, essentially. And then meanwhile, we have this shot right here of Chojuro in his, like, dying breath looking over at Yamamoto and, like, being like, Genryu Sai-san, they can steal our Bankai. And then, like, as soon as that happens, the music cues up, the really epic orchestral shit and, like, the vocals. At the same time, Ebern pulls out his medallion, and, you know, he's been goading Ichigo to go into his Bankai the entire time throughout this fight. Ichigo finally relents, and he goes into his Bankai to see what he's up to, and then we get to see this effect right here where Ichigo goes into his Bankai, and then boom, this giant, like, cube thing kind of unfolds and kind of stares down on him and sort of begins to imprison Ichigo into this barrier of light. I love the light effects in this, even the light effects. I mean, once again, the still shots don't do it justice. You really got to go check out the actual episode to really get the full effect here. But yeah, so the Quincy's have this special medallion that's, I don't think it's ever actually explained how they do this, but they just have these medallions that are able to steal Bankai. It probably comes back to, like, the duality that exists, like how the Shinigami are related to the Quincy's, or how Yuha is related to the Soul King in some way that we're gonna get later. But, like, yeah, they just have these medallions that can steal Bankai, and Eburn attempts to use it here on Ichigo. And it actually does manage to break part of his arm. Like, you can see this right here. I think this was in the manga, where I'll pull up that shot right here where Ichigo's fighting against Eburn. And I think Ichigo's arm does break a bit when he uses it. Let's see here. Yes, it does. It does snap off part of his shot here. Also, this is the shot with, like, the super creepy scene. I will try to get it here. Okay, there it is, right there. I got it. This shot. Holy shit, right? I mean, come on now. I mean, like, that is, like, the shot in the manga is very creepy. It's a very creepy scene where Eburn is just like, you know, he's like so happy Ichigo finally decided to go into his Bankai, like, oh, I can finally use it. I can finally use the thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like he's so excited to finally, like, oh, my best laid plans have finally happened. But no. It's way creepier here in the anime. The lines on this dude's face are just like, I don't even know how you could contort it like that, but, like, dude, that is the creepy. You know what I gotta do from this moment onward in every episode in BAN-KAST, I gotta do a shot where it's like, okay, this is the MVP screenshot of the episode or whatever, you know what I mean? I gotta do that in the future. So, yeah, Ichigo's Bankai does not get stolen. He basically kind of like with a little bit of difficulty, he brushes off the attack, and then Eburn is attacked with the Getsuga Tensho. He's severely burned and injured, and he's basically like flipping out, like, you know, why didn't it work? Why? And then now, right as the sun's about to go down, Ichigo's just kind of like, okay, I didn't really give a shit about you at first, but like now I kind of need to have a conversation with you. What was that thing? What were you trying to do? What are you? Are you in a wrong car? Are you a Quincy? What's going on here? And then Eburn is just like, oh shit, okay, well, you know what? I'm just gonna disappear. So the shadow effect right here, this is, oh my god, the sunset, the red glare of the sunset as like the shadow. I love how the shadow has this weird kind of like, it's sort of like, it looks like a cluster of like bugs or like insects or like some living thing that's like gwomping you, covering you, and then sucking you into this other dimension. It looks like the remnants of like a fire, like the ashes of a fire that are still smoldering kind of. And so he gets covered in that, and you can still see the remnants of that effect of the shadow like taking him back into the shadow realm, so to speak. And then Ichigo's just left behind, just like, what the fuck was that? You know, like, what was that again? So that was really cool. Oh, and this, oh my god, this transition was beautiful. This transition where the camera pans into one of these, like the ashes left behind by the shadow ability, and we just zoom into the shadow realm, and then boom, we get the Silburn. We get the Silburn, which is the Quincy Palace. I'll see if I get a better shot of it here. Okay, there we go. That's a much better shot of it. Like, oh my god, like, that's great. That's taken pretty much directly from the manga, like the exact scene of everything. We don't get like a lot of other establishing shots, but like, my god, this is really nice. This is a really nice shot here. So this is Looters Frieden. I don't know how to pronounce a lot of these names. We're gonna get a lot of, we still have some Spanish names left over from the Iran card, but we're also gonna get a lot of German names coming up. So, oh good lord. At least I took 1 year of Spanish in high school. I took no years of German, so we're gonna have some fun with this. But anyway, yeah. So Looters is also another Iran card that was drafted into the army, and so he is sort of not a friend of Eburn, but like a colleague. Like, they're aware of each other. And then we have this shot there where Eburn has returned and he's bowing before Yuha, except Looters has not noticed Yuha yet, and so he thinks that like, oh, Eburn, you're bowing before me, why thank you. And then Looters just looks up and he's just like, oh, you fool, you're a moron. And then boom, Yuha is standing right there. We also see the symbol of the Sternritter behind them, the Sternritter cross, which is a little bit more detailed, I think. There's that little symbol in the center, which I don't think is in the manga. I think so. That's added a little bit more detail with it there. Let me just see here. I'm just going to pull up this shot with Yuha here in the manga. I'm sorry, guys. I'm taking so much time. This is what makes it a podcast, though. It's just like we're doing this in real time, baby. Actually, in the manga, we don't even see... See, that's the thing. So Kubo's thing is he makes his backgrounds a lot of times just pure white, pure black, just for the sake of, like, you know, like, you could argue it's one part easier for him to draw, but also one part just more, like, so it's like the characters are front and center. But that doesn't really work too well with the anime. Like, you need to have backgrounds in the anime. So that shot there with the Sternritter cross, like, that, I don't even think that's there in the manga. I didn't see it. And that also might actually be the Gate of the Sun, which is something that's referenced early on and is not mentioned again until way, 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 way at the end, like the last 6 chapters of Bleach, it's referenced again. The Gate of the Sun is like the way that the Quincy's kind of teleport, kind of warp around, and they do so by these little symbols. Like, there has to be like a symbol in order to use it, and you pull up one of your medallions to one of the Quincy symbols, and you're able to open a gate to like the Shadow Realm or whatever. And so, yeah, so that's that probably is what that is. That's probably the Sun Gate back there. But yeah, Looters loses an arm here because Yuha is the one that's actually sitting in front of him. A lot of blood, and then boom, we have Yuha Bach, Quincy Jesus, just stating that I don't like conflict, I don't like arguments, and yeah, he definitely means it because, you know, he doesn't give a shit about the Arrancar. You know, he doesn't care. They're his vanguard unit. They are his fodder soldiers that are supposed to just run into the fray and just get killed immediately, be mowed down, and, you know, nothing of any value was lost in the eyes of Yuha. You know, he is a Quincy. He cares not for the Hollows. He just wants to subjugate them, and we're going to get more into that as we go into the future episodes. But, yeah, so one thing that is different, though, is that Yuha's mustache is way more filled in here, like his mustache mutton chops kind of combo. In the actual manga, go back and look, and I don't have to look that one up because I actually did, you know, already look at it beforehand. But when Yuha first shows up, his mustache isn't even really filled in. It's more of just like peach fuzz, if anything. And then as the arc progresses, his mustache gets more and more, like, by the end of it, those mutton chops basically have like a life of their own. You know what I mean? I don't think he ever gets a beard, but he basically just has like the perfect mustache mutton chop combo, and it's not even at its final form right here, but it will be by the end of this arc. So it's filled in a little bit more than the original manga. So maybe that was like Kubo, like maybe wanting to have his mutton chops like at an earlier point. I don't know, but that's the analysis of Yuha's facial hair. So that is effectively the end of the episode at that point. Now we have the ending theme song, amazing music, that basically serves as a Bleach rewind, where we now cut back through all of the shots from the anime. You know, as the credits roll in the background, we have, you know, Ichigo fighting Grimmjow here, Huecamundo. We have Ichigo busting out of the Garganta to go attack Aizen. We have, I think that's a shot of Renji doing something cool. Let's see, just go like this. There's Ukiura, of course. There's, you know, Ichigo going into his Vasto Lorde form. Here's Ichigo fighting against, I think this is when he arrived at Karakura Town to fight against Aizen. Yeah, there's Uryu again. So, like, oh, there's the scene with Orihime and Ichigo before Orihime leaves, you know? So, all these scenes like that, there's Uehara. So, that's just a really great way to end the episode out. I don't think they're probably going to do this. I mean, they might. This might be the ending theme, like, the ending theme for every single episode. I'd be fine with that. Maybe they'll use different, like, footage from every episode every single time. I didn't see any footage from the Bount arc, though, so F- episode, literally unwatchable. And at the end, though, we also get a shot that's really cool. We get a shot of the poem. Okay, yeah, so here we are. We have the poem here. This is something that Kubo puts at... Did I say it was the end of the volume? It was at the beginning of the volume. There's like a little bit of a poem here. You can kind of see it. This is the one for volume 55. So there's going to be probably more episodes than volumes, I'm assuming. So probably going to be... Yeah, because there's only like... There's only like 20 volumes, not even 20 volumes of the final arc in Bleach. So yeah, they're definitely going to have to be more poems. But this is the poem that was at the beginning of volume 55. Take one step in and never return, the sea of blood of the universe. And then at the very end, after this poem, we get a shot of, like, yeah, Bleach 2 Foundation Stones, which is another name for a chapter, but it's also going to be the name of episode 2. So, yeah, that's something else that's going to be cool. We don't really get... They're taking this in a lot more serious light. We don't get, like, the Shinigami Golden Cup or, like, the Quincy Encyclopedia or, like, those kind of, like, lighthearted, goofy kind of moments at the end of every episode, which I did enjoy. it seems we're playing this in a lot more serious way. I'll just go back to my original shot here. We're getting this in a much more serious kind of tone now, absolutely, where it's just like end of the episode, here's a poem, kind of dramatic, and then it's just like next episode, Bleach 2, Foundation Stones. So I guess we're going back and like we're just starting. We're not going like episode 370, whatever. We're just like episode 1, 2, 3, 4, just like separate arc, separate anime project, just to keep it simple, okay? Which I think is probably the best way you could do it. So anyway, yeah. That was my breakdown of the first episode of the Bleach Blood Warfare arc. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's been about an hour, so yeah, in podcast format, this is going to be available on Spotify, so hope you guys enjoyed that, I guess. It's a little bit because I'm using, like, the visuals from the episode, so in Spotify in, like, podcast format, it might be a little bit weird, but whatever. Yeah, let me know how you thought about this, and also let me know if you have any ideas on, like, how better to... I do have to get it better on, like, the frames, like, going through the frames of the episode, because, like, I was trying to like narrow it down. I thought it went frame by frame, but it doesn't. So I got to figure out a better way to do that. And I'm hoping there's no copyright issue for doing like just showing the screenshots of the episode and just talking over them and analyzing them. Hoping there's no issue with that, but we'll see. It's kind of a test, so we'll see where this goes. Anyway, it's good to be back, everybody. So welcome to BAN-KAST, and we'll be here with every new Bleach episode, hopefully. So thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Teching, signing out.